Is this the dagger?
G'day guys, JB here. Game 2 in the books. That's it. We are 2 games through the 2023 NBA Finals. That's both games done now in Denver. And the series headed on the road to Miami. Of course, a bit of a different feel in this game here, particularly early on from the Heat. And really certainly changed the tone of this one compared to the first game matchup, where it was pretty evident early on that the Heat were certainly off. Denver were on and were just able to pick apart that Miami team left, right and center. Certainly wasn't the case in game 2, and we will get into that right now. Of course, in the first quarter, to end it, Miami leading 26-23. And again, it was early on that it was evident that Miami were a different unit on both sides of the ball. Offensively, they used a lot of ball screens, getting players open, slipping the action, avoiding the contact, taking the three-point shot, not having to go inside as much to Bam Adebayo, who was really the dominant player in that first game. Don't get me wrong, Bam was still having an impact, but really evident that on both sides of the ball, this was a different Heat team. Denver certainly early on went away from the size factor in their lineups. We saw that early on in game 1 where Aaron Gordon would get a mismatch, Michael Porter Jr. would get a mismatch, or Jokic recognizing just where the matchup problem was would allow his team to take advantage of it. But they were certainly not wanting to play just with size in this one. They were certainly wanting to play with a little bit more finesse and ball movement. Again, ball screens proving key to confusing the Heat. Proving key to confusing the defense for the Heat, who really started to slide and move. And again, key off that was Max Strus. Recovered early on, 0 of 10 shooting, night 1, game 1 of the NBA Finals. That's right, 0 of 10 shooting. Pretty sure it was the worst start to an NBA Finals career the league had seen since Reggie Miller went 1 of 16 back in 2000 against the Lakers. Strus opening up very, very early though, and getting things done where he needed to in this one. Finished the quarter 4 of 7 from deep for 12 points there. Of course, Denver started to settle towards the end of that quarter and really started to make them pay, started to hit a couple of shots, started to get to the rim, started to get the ball inside. And by the end of it, margin, as we mentioned there, 26-23 in favour of the Heat. But Nikola Jokic just looking to play a little more ball in hand than normal, not necessarily the way he looks at the game. He actually is more effective when he's distributing than when he's scoring, which I think says a lot compared to other players who seem to be really ball dominant. But Jokic led the offensive side of the ball, less effective with the ball in hand, but proved to still be effective as the quarter ended. Again, Max Strus leading the way, 12 points, 1 rebound, 1 block, 4 of 7 from the field, which was ironically 4 of 7 from deep. And Jokic, 11 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, and 1 turnover there. 5 of 9 from the field, 1 of 2 from deep. Ironically, both sides, though, leading the three-point percentage range at 50. That's right, they were both 50% from deep. And again, I think it was around 47% for Denver from the field, 43% for the Heat, and they were just able to knock a couple of more shots down from beyond the arc. And while Miami certainly had the hot hand to open the game, it was Denver who then proceeded to have the opening hot hand of the second term. Backwards and forwards play, clear that Denver had come out with a different mindset in the second term. Just couldn't miss a shot early on in this one. A 21-point swing following a 10-11 point lead there for Miami in the first term, turning into a 10-11 point lead for Denver in the second term. A lot of it led by 2 guys. Number 1, Christian Braun, making huge plays, coming down the floor, taking a defender, facilitating at the right time, hitting that open pass, finding the right guy, finding the cutter, attacking the rim, collapsing the D, doing all of that, and was just hitting every player outside the arc who continued to knock down shots left, right, and center. And there's no doubt about it, that was a huge key in the success of this second term. But so was the 2-minute spurt there from Jamal Murray, who was getting about it defensively, getting about it offensively, knocking shots, attacking the rim, brought the crowd back into it, and really blew the game open for Denver. But to Miami's credit, started to peg things back towards the end of the third quarter, started to make a few plays, started to make a few shots, and again just came back to looking like part of that team that opened up the first quarter. Although, it must be said, without a major contribution from Jimmy Butler, who to the half, 11 points, but a very quiet 11 points. 3 rebounds, 4 assists on that, 4 of 9 shooting from the field. So not necessarily the Jimmy Butler we're expecting. I mean, he's pretty much had the same first half here that he did in game 1, and the impact has certainly come from his teammates. The hot opening starters pretty much just hid them and hid his production in that one there, which was really, really interesting to see. Of course, at the half, Denver leading 57-51. Jokic, at that point, 13 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 turnover, 6 of 13 from the field, 1 of 3 from deep. Max Strus still leading the way for the Heat, 14 points, 2 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 block. Started to die down from the outside, 4 of 9 from the field and from deep, but 2 of 3 from the stripe. And interestingly enough, 50% field goal for Denver, really tuning up compared to 44.2 for the Miami Heat. Of course, Denver 21 of 42 from the field at the half, 19 of 43 for the Heat. And really clear there that by the time the halftime break had come, Denver had really settled, but Miami still showing glimpses of what they needed to do and what it was going to take in the second half if they were indeed going to split the series. Of course, there was always a question as to what was going to happen in the third term. And Gabe Vincent was the guy who started to answer that question, making the most of the defense and cutting the lead early in the third term. Of course, he finished with 18 points by the end of the third quarter. And again, just really came out to play. And it really just showed, early on in the third term there, that the role players of the Heat are more than capable. They're able to stand up. Of course, they had a really long, arduous 7-game Eastern Conference Finals that probably should have been a sweep. They should have been ready and prepared, but weren't really able to be once they got to the Mile High City. So now they've had a game off, a game to adjust. It's clear that they're more than capable of playing. Everyone across the board really trying to step up as far as their role players are concerned, particularly outside of Bam, who, to a moderate, okay start to the game, and Butler with a very mild start to the game, to put it nicely. Again, though, it became a real battle in the third. Generally, neither side giving or taking an inch, not really wanting to do much more when you look at it, which was, really interesting to see. And again, the physicality came into the game. I think everyone tried to establish themselves, really just trying to push the momentum into their favour. And again, that's what postseason basketball is all about. Complete change from game 1, where it became, let's just go on one-on-one runs here. Let's dominate. Let's really have a go. Let's see what can happen, which is exactly what Denver did in that first game. And, game 2, certainly not like that. A lot of punches being thrown, a lot of runs being had. And that's what postseason basketball is all about. Grit and grind, get it out, really force things where you can, really try and change the game. That's what postseason basketball is all about. The inclusion of Kevin Love into the starting lineup, I didn't mention that in the first quarter, but Kevin Love in the game just made sense and makes a lot of sense for this Heat team when you need someone to get a break going, when you need someone to get a rebound. And again, I mentioned it before the series started, for Denver to lead on their veterans with no finals experience. Also key with this highly inexperienced, as far as finals team is concerned for the Heat. Also key for them to lean on their veterans, and there's no doubt about it, a genuine veteran in Kevin Love going to his 5th NBA Finals, really wanting to get things done, and again, getting rebounds, throwing outlet passes, starting breaks, just getting things moving along. And just when it looked like the game was going to shift once again, Nikola Jokic just said, not today. A huge third term. I said about Gabe Vincent having 18 points for the quarter. 18 points for the game. Try 18 points for the quarter for Nikola Jokic, who finished with 31, 7 and 3 with 1 steal at the end of the quarter. Just took over, demanded the ball. Again, I mentioned it before. I think Denver is a better unit when he doesn't have the ball in his hands all the time. But when he gets into these moods where he's just looking to score, where he's just looking to get things done, he's really hard to stop. Again, there's a reason why they think he's the best player in the world. It's really hard to debate when he does something like this. It's really hard to not like him as a player. Again, just a big guy who wants high action, who wants to back you down, who wants to score, able to shoot the ball, able to get the free throw line and even run the breaks. So huge there from Jokic to really open that one up towards the end of the third. Denver 83, Miami 75. Through three quarters, some damning stats there as well. 50.8% going to Denver compared to 44.3% there for the Heat, which was still better than their shooting in game one. 30-59 from the field for the Nuggets, 27-61 from the field for the Heat. Meanwhile, the rebound count really started going Denver's favour, and you can just sense, again, the momentum really swinging. 38-29 rebound count in favour of Denver, that +9 on the glass, really proving to be a game changer there heading into the fourth quarter. And then once the fourth quarter began, the game changer was the Miami Heat. And by the end of this one here, as we see, the Heat getting the win 111-108. And it all started with Duncan Robinson. He went from basically being out of the league at the midway point of this season, struggling to even get minutes, to 10 points to open the fourth quarter here, turned into Big Shot Rob in a playoff series. All of a sudden, he's become another key, pivotal player. And Miami overall started the fourth as they did in the third, next man up. People hitting shots, people making plays, people getting it done. The Heat just really forcing the issue for Denver as well. Had the Nuggets hamstrung physically from the 9-minute mark of the fourth term. Really had them in foul issues. So constantly being able to get to the line there as well. Dominated that fourth term. Again, just hitting shots, just making plays, spreading the floor, next man up. Butler getting involved. Bam consistently still, for me, the best player for the Heat in this series right now. But just when you thought it was over, Denver started to show signs of life. They were down by as much as 10, 11, 12 points there. Made a genuine run at it once again. Miami just able to settle though, keep things at arm's length. And then as the final play comes down the floor, about 15 seconds to go, Jimmy Butler misses the mid-range jumper, which would have made it 5. Denver elect not to time out. They take a 3, miss, scrambled rebound, time expires. And the Miami Heat split the road 1-1 with Denver, hand Denver their first road loss of the postseason and hand Denver their first home loss, I should say. So home loss in this playoff, but first home loss since March. So a massive, massive win there for the Miami Heat. Of course, their top scorer was Gabe Vincent, 23 points, 3 assists, 2 steals, 1 turnover. But there was a lot going on for this Heat team overall. I mentioned the 23 points there for Gabe Vincent, 21 points, 4 rebounds, 9 assists in the end for Jimmy Butler on a really subpar night for him. By his standards, managed to work it up, but still not really getting to that Jimmy Butler level we've expected. Bam Adebayo has probably consistently been the best player for the Heat in this series. He played 40 minutes on the dot, 21 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 blocks. Again, mentioned Duncan Robinson did all his scoring in the fourth quarter there, 10 points. Also, the 14 points opened early for Max Strus. For Denver, it's Jokic though. He's clearly still the best player in this series. If Denver were to win, if the series was over right now for Denver, he'd be their finals MVP, as would Bam be for the Heat. 41 points, 11 rebounds, 4 assists there, 57% from the field, 40% from deep, 87.5 from the stripe. And then your next contributor down there was Jamal Murray, really off night even by his standards. 18 points, 10 assists, 4 rebounds, 46.7 from the field, 12.7 rebounds, 2 assists there for Aaron Gordon, and 11 points, 5 rebounds for Bruce Brown. As Jeff Green really chipping in a little bit where he could, Christian Braun chipping in where he could, but it just wasn't enough as the Heat run away with the win in this one. Of course, player of the game, as I mentioned, Gabe Vincent. The big key for Gabe Vincent was that he came out shooting, he came out firing. He wasn't worried about the bad start the team had in that first game, continued to play, and honestly, it has just been that stepping up and the next man mentality that really has been the major key all throughout this postseason here for the Heat. As they continue to do it once again, getting the job done, cannot worry about that too much. Of course, interesting stat out of this game, Nikola Jokic becomes the first non-Lakers centre ever in finals history to have at least 40 points, 10 rebounds, which is something that a lot of people probably didn't even realise. It's was pretty big. So a nice tick in the box there for him. Massive effort there. Game 2 was the Heat's 7th double-digit comeback win of the series. That's tied of the playoffs. That is tied for the most such wins in a single postseason in the last 25 years, joining the Warriors last season and the Heat in 2011 and 2012. Jokic became the third player in NBA postseason history with 500 points, 200 rebounds, and 150 assists. The only other players to do that have been LeBron James 4 times, 2015 through 18 and 2020, as well as Larry Bird. 15 and 18 and 2020, and Larry Bird in 1987. Jimmy Butler was the third player in Heat history, joining LeBron James and Dwayne Wade with 500 points, 100 rebounds, and 100 assists in a postseason. So a little bit going on in that department there. But again, player of the game for me, Gabe Vincent, getting the job done. Kevin Love with a big impact, as we mentioned, really helped his game lift. And of course, Bam Adebayo just being that consistent player right now. The Heat won the series right now. You have to give Bam Adebayo the finals MVP. There's no doubt about that. His play has been consistent and sensational, even though he is clearly being outplayed for who I would deem the finals MVP, Nikola Jokic, right now. That's game 2 in the books. It'll be very interesting to see just what goes on in game 3 as we head back down to South Beach. Heat at home are always tough. They have travelled really well this season. And as an 8th seed, 1-1 in the NBA Finals, they now have tied the Knicks, obviously, as the Knicks got 1 win in the NBA Finals of 1999. If they get 2, it certainly will be the most by any team lower than a 6th seed, considering the 95 Rockets won the NBA Finals with 4-2 over Orlando as a 6th seed. So we'll see how this one continues to pan out. But that is my review of Game 2, guys. Thank you for tuning in. We'll catch everyone back during the week for Game 3 down in Miami. That's been me, guys. I'm out.